Nice and sunny in here. I can't tell if we have AC or not, but at least the power is on for now, so hopefully we'll make it through the rest of the presentation without too many more flickers. I'm joined here by 3 venture capitalists, and I'm going to go ahead and let them do their introductions, and I know that they'll speak well for themselves. But I just want to, so yeah, let's go ahead and start with that. I'll go ahead and tee off to my far left, and we'll do just brief 2-sentence intro.
Yeah, hi, I'm Ravi, Viswanathan, general partner in NEA. We're a global venture capital firm investing out of a $3 billion fund, and I focus on mainly the enterprise software space. Great to be here.
I'm Dharmesh, Thakker. I'm with R.O.I Ventures. We're a global fund investing B2B software. I focus specifically on data infrastructure, AI, and cloud enterprise software, broadly speaking.
I'm Gaurav Tewari. I'm with Citi Ventures, where we do venture investing efforts. And certainly AI and machine learning has been a very big focus area for us, where we're seeing it in many different areas. We invest globally, but currently have most of our portfolio in the US with an emphasis in Silicon Valley. And typically we invest for both financial returns, but also try to help companies drive revenues and customer validation by leveraging our access to the Citi Group and financial services ecosystems.
All right, so we're following up a pretty inspirational talk. You guys have seen a lot of technology over the last few hours, some pretty awesome things happening in artificial intelligence and machine learning. We're here to be the super negative people, or I suppose positive, depending on how you look at it, in thinking about what it takes to build real businesses. And I actually didn't play a role at all in titling this panel, but I think driving real ROI, the investment part of that is very key. And investment's pretty simple. I mean, you can only think about it in so many different dimensions. It's either time spent working on a project, it's money that you get returned as an investor or as an enterprise from investing in a particular technology, and it's pretty binary. It either generates money or it doesn't. So I want to start off by sort of just going down the road here, starting off with Gaurav, and thinking about the types of businesses that you think make money and don't make money, and it seems like an elementary school or freshman year economics seminar type question, but particularly in the AI space, what is your rule of thumb for AI businesses that make money and AI businesses that don't?
And we're in interesting times where companies aren't necessarily punished for not making money, although markets could shift and that sentiment might ebb and flow. And we've seen many acquisitions of companies that, the hundreds of millions of dollars that didn't necessarily have any clue about how to make money, but were acquired largely as highly valued acqui-hires. So, but my rule of thumb is, are they solving a real defined customer value, customer problem? And are they delivering real value to the customer? The customer could be a consumer or it could be an enterprise, but it's got to do something that the customer values and do it uniquely and ideally defensively. And so I think that takes on different manifestations, but at a very high level. To me, AI in the product is a means to an end to do something better. And doing something better ultimately relates to what problem are you solving. And a corollary of that is a problem, a painkiller, or a vitamin. That's been an often used phrase, but is it a nice to have or is it a need to have? And increasingly the potential of AI lends itself to companies that should be need to have. And it's really incumbent upon the companies to develop and market the solution in a manner that achieves that vision, as opposed to becoming a nice ancillary adjunct for which it might be some discretionary dollars at play there, but not viable businesses in my opinion.
So Dharmesh, do you think the types of problems that we can address have changed now that we have artificial intelligence and machine learning? I think the general sense is that we're applying these to business problems, but are we simply replacing older technologies from the 90s and early 2000s with AI, or is there an entirely new set of companies that perhaps wouldn't have been accounted for from that time period?
Yeah, so I think it's important to have the right kind of context here, right? So I was finishing up my WE undergrad in the late 90s, and we had AI work going back then, right? So AI and machine learning is not a new field. It's been around since the 60s and 70s. And so, I think we get carried away by every presentation you see these days being a cloud company and an AI company. So it makes it feel like it's new, but it's been around for decades. I think what's different is 2 things. One, I think analytics is as good as the data you have and the quality of the data you have. You got a ton more data now, thanks to your social feeds, your mobile phones, 20 billion devices in this IoT space that are spitting out data every microsecond. So you now have a lot more data you can act on in verticals where you can actually drive some business benefits, right? So that's new. And then secondly, I think thanks to Moore's law and thanks to cloud computing, you now have the ability to analyze that data relatively cost effectively, right? So if it cost me 10 cents to analyze an X-ray and figure out if there's a structural issue in a patient I'm looking at, it's very different than buying an expensive supercomputer 20 years ago to analyze the same data. So I think it's important to realize that AI as a construct has been around, but because of the data and easy ability to analyze the data, it's used a lot more effectively now. Having said that, not every AI company, I think we look at 6,000 companies a year and invest in about 15, not all AI, but across the board. There's a lot of hype out there, and our strategy in terms of AI has very much been either go to vertical apps or go to core infrastructure. A lot of the middleware, kind of slightly better algorithms that try to beat Google at their game or Amazon at their game, that's hard for us. But if you look at vertical applications, there are 3 or 4 verticals where we believe there's a ton of data, real business benefit in analyzing the data, and you can use the cloud to do so inexpensively, right? So for example, retail. Millennials engage with retail and brands in an entirely different way. People don't go and search for shoes anymore. They upload a photo and say, hey, show me other shoes like it. And it's a really difficult task computationally to do that by leveraging TensorFlow and leveraging the image data. But thanks to AI, you can now engage millennials in a very engaging way, which wasn't possible. So retail is an example of a vertical where you have data, you can leverage AI for real business results. Same thing with healthcare, same thing with insurance industry in terms of underwriting risks on homes by looking at satellite image. So I think there's a few verticals we are very excited about where there's a real business benefit and the cost structure allows you to do AI at scale.
So I guess I totally agree with everything you just said. I guess just to push back to be a little bit more concrete about the question that I asked. A lot of these companies that grew in the early 2000s and the late 90s are in an acquisition spree now. If you think about Salesforce and a lot of the companies related to Heap, for example, that they've bought. Do you think that the new generation of AI companies that's coming down the road is going to compete or disrupt the Salesforces, so on and so forth, in any meaningful way? Or do you think these companies that are in a race to pivot and to purchase and acquire AI and machine learning companies are going to be able to run that bend? I think it's pretty clear at this point that Facebook and Google and Microsoft and what they're doing with an AI-first approach is going to work. But what about everybody between the sort of fledgling Series A and B startups now and the behemoths?
Yeah, look, so I don't think good companies are sold, they're bought, right? So if an entrepreneur came to me and said, hey, I'm going to build this AI trick and then Salesforce is going to buy me, I don't think it's for us, right? Having said that, there's plenty of kind of core IP where companies get bought for tens, if not hundreds of millions with no revenues, and so it's a good outcome for them. But it's very hard to systematically make returns as a venture investor by counting on those M&A outcomes. So we very much kind of look at large verticals that are being disrupted the same way Salesforce disrupted customer engagement. You're now seeing verticals and retail, healthcare, financial services where there are companies that can be standalone entities. I was fortunate to be involved with a few of them like Mongo, Cloud, that are more infrastructure oriented, but there are much more vertical centric companies that can be built, that are standalone companies. That is certainly the base case, but if something screws up and somebody comes along buying you for a few $100 million as a backup plan, then that's kind of how we look at it.
And now, Ravi, none of this stuff is occurring in a vacuum. There's tons and tons of money being put into the ecosystem by many of the companies I just mentioned, the Facebooks, the Googles, and so on and so forth. You can already see these strategies playing out in the short term, investing in Google with everything that they've done with TPUs and chips and pushing their entire cloud services business. You can see the same thing playing out with Amazon. What do you think is sort of the natural resting place of that? And the last 6 to 12 months has given us a lot of commentary from a lot of venture capitalists on this idea of rejection of the horizontally oriented artificial intelligence business. But if you think about it, do you think that between those large cloud services providers, they're able to address the horizontals for both the smart data scientists and engineers and also the sort of business analysts that are now getting to use AI more and more as part of their traditional workflows?
Well, for sure they are flooding money into this space, but they've been doing that for quite a while. And I think, and venture still exists, and really attractive venture-backed companies still get acquired or go public. I think that if you look at these behemoths, when you look at specific applications, verticals, where they actually have not done as well as purpose-built companies that are really focused on it. They focus on a vertical or a use case or a problem they want to solve. And they attack that problem and they build scale and mass. Now, the closer you get to their core, whether it's AWS or any of these other offerings, you have to fight that gravitational pull against you of just capital. They can just flood tens of billions of capital, and that is a business model that for us, for our companies, obviously doesn't work. But the analogy, at least with AI, we don't even think of it as AI companies. I think for us it's tough to to appreciate that. It's a competitive enabler. Just like 5 years ago, what is AI now it was big data then. That was the hype cycle moment of the day 5 years ago. But you just had that initial wave, but then you saw companies actually solving problems in these verticals that Gaurav and Dharmesh talked about. And then what emerged is really attractive companies that had technological underpinnings, whether using big data or machine learning or what have you, that solved problems in a much better way than they could have without the technology. And when you have that and you scale that, then you can build these iconic companies. When we look at our companies, it's almost in the rearview mirror. We say, oh, this is a big data company, or this is a machine learning company. We don't go in thinking, what are we going to do with this AI or machine learning tech?
For sure. And Gaurav, when you think about some of these verticals specifically, we all get, I'm sure, many of the same overlapping pitches on a daily basis. I've covered and also been pitched dozens of sales ops, HR, basically working through the enterprise stack and thinking every single place that you could possibly apply deep learning or machine learning in some way to deal with, whether it be unstructured data or image data, or the list goes on. What is actually sustainable? And to what degree will these companies just cannibalize themselves in the vacuum or in this very small competitive space while some of these larger players sort of acquire to catch up?
So a couple of questions in there. Maybe I'll start with the sustainability, what I think is attractive and sustainable. So one of the biggest promises of AI is the potential to augment and automate daily work. And there's, leaving aside the societal implications, which, is a whole different topic, this is pretty real. So if you think about, the World Bank came out with a projection saying that by 2025, 50% of the work done by today's workers can be automatable. So that doesn't mean the entire job is automatable. It means 50% of the time that we spend doing repetitive, mundane data entry, data processing oriented things. And typically folks in our line of work are spending a quarter to a third of our day doing that. A lot of that could be automatable. You think about admins, you think about truck drivers, you think about entire professions where we're already seeing vectors, we heard from X.AI earlier today. So the thing that all of these things have in common, whether they're augmenting a human and making them better, you talk about insurance, underwriting, Ravi, and risk processing, that's a process today that's based on human error and big data systems. Well, there's potentially room for AI, and we're already seeing that, to come in and complement the human while still receiving supervised iterative learning from the human, right? So the human's kind of working alongside the AI. So in those cases, the common thread is there's a clear return on the investment in the software. So it's either demonstrable return because I used to have a full-time admin, now I might need a part-time admin or no admin in a very simple case, or I used to have underwriting losses in my insurance policies of X% and that's gone down because I'm able to learn and adapt faster and make decisions more objectively. So I think that, to me, is the common thread. And I think enterprises in particular, as much as they're embracing the hype cycle of AI, they have never more R.O.I. conscious than they are now. So I think what I'm interestingly seeing in the market is I see solutions that might have a better overall solution, but if the lead time and the time to return is too far out, they are typically losing out for more simpler modular solutions that provide a more immediate ROI. And I think the second part of your question kind of touched upon the horizontal versus vertical and kind of the fallout that might happen for funding. I tend to agree with Ravi's points for the most part around horizontal plays. I think the big tech behemoths are doing an interesting, they've done a lot of activity in building out those capabilities and exposing them through open source or APIs. That said, a lot of them are based on certain approaches. Nuance has been around forever, and a lot of people use Nuance's API to do natural language understanding and processing. Well, there are new paradigms emerging, and I do think it's like finding a needle in a haystack, admittedly, but there are companies emerging that will, challenge that, right, in terms of a brand new paradigm and a new approach. And, as far as funding is concerned, we wrestle with that. There's a lot of companies getting funded. There's a lot of Me Too plays. I think one of the acid tests for us, the litmus test for us, so to speak, is, again, customer referenceability and credibility, right? And that some of these spaces are big enough to support multiple players. But in venture capital, there's usually a big difference between backing the first player and the number 2 player, and the third player is usually inconsequential.
Fantastic. And Ravi, one more question for you. If you think about the role of different types of funds, whether, and this might be a question for everybody, whether we think about corporate venture, institutional venture, micro funds, what are the role of each of these institutions in this broader machine intelligence ecosystem? And what would be the role of somebody like a Breakout or a Comet Labs versus perhaps a Citi or a GV versus sort of some of you that come from funds like Battery and so on and so forth that are some of these tried and true historical institutional funds?
Well, I mean, all of us are funding this ecosystem, and we have a different approach, but we're collaborators in a lot of these companies. And I think a lot of this, if we talk about AI, and we've bifurcated. There's the science projects, which we steer away from, although we still have some of those. And then there's the ones that actually deliver an ROI. But that journey, so the average gestation period for a startup is 8 to 10 years. That journey really only gets realized with company building, right? And you have people on the stage that spend a massive amount of time on that. So the role is for all of us, we have to do it together. So you don't see, we're not like the buyout guys that own assets. We're minority investors. We have several around the table. And we have the collective networks and relationships, whether it's Citi or Battery NEA, and the host of others to company build, and that's team building. You're also going after, sometimes you could be doing something what Salesforce did to Siebel, which is an existing market disrupting it. Sometimes you're creating a new market. And so the team building and the company building for both, there's analogies, but it's very different than Storybook. So all of us play a pretty intimate role in that process.
And Dharmesh, just some closing thoughts on that? Sure.
Yeah, I was going to say, so the question you asked is what are the role the micro VCs, corporates play in the equation here? I'm at Battery now. I spent a few years with Intel Capital. A couple of my colleagues are here. And I'd say what's remarkable about the AI ecosystem is that in many cases, these are greenfield markets you're creating, right? There's software that hasn't touched many industries, talk about construction or building, or many of these industries are seeing net new expansion opportunities. And corporates combined with kind of the right startup partners can jointly, make 1 + 1 way more than 2. So I think you're seeing a lot more kind of strategic activity with AI-driven companies, especially as it relates to some of these verticals where you can jointly go together, you build the best product, we have the sales marketing muscle, we invest and we go to market together, and we all benefit. So I think we're seeing more corporate activity in that front. I think one area specifically is this whole area of autonomous driving, which is an extreme example of kind of deep learning at scale. You're seeing the GMs and the Fords of the world partner up, or in many cases acquire companies, because I think jointly they can create this whole new market, which we haven't seen. So there's a reason behind that. And then I think on the micro VC fund, I think it's been a really good thing for the institutional investor base, much like ourselves. And that's not just relevant to AI, but in general, where 10 years ago, to get any early product market fit, a company could take 8-10 million to go buy the servers and put the infrastructure together. Whereas now, in 3 to 5 million, you can leverage a cloud service and get real product market fit. And micro VCs are doing a really good job of funding those companies at the first 2-3 million, helping them get to market, build a product market fit. So by the time we see a Series A company, the quality of the Series A company, the maturity of the product market fit is a lot better than we would have seen 10 years ago. So I think it's very complementary. And so the quality of companies you see getting funded at A levels now, thanks to micro VCs, is a lot higher than you would have seen.
Thank you all so much. We have a lot more time that we could potentially take to dig into this topic, but I want to make sure that we spend a little bit of time on Q&A before we have to draw to a close. So does anybody have any questions? Certainly. Okay, there we go.
Are you still looking at AI platforms at all? If so, in what areas? And if not, what verticals are of greatest interest to you at this time that you haven't invested in?
Yeah, I mean, when I said, we all said some things about horizontal, but I think all of us look at platforms. We have a company, an investment company called Data Robot, which is this machine intelligence automation platform that basically can be used across industries. So we absolutely do that, and our view is to find that product market fit, whether it's a horizontal play or in a vertical market. Having said that, on the vertical side, we talked about it, there's many sub-verticals in financial services. There are industries that actually has been technology light. Some folks said it in this panel, it's construction or manufacturing or logistics. Those are some areas. Healthcare, we're a whole healthcare team. I think there's a lot of opportunity there as well. So those are some areas.
And I'll just add to that very quickly, kind of what's different here is that data, so big data is kind of segued nicely into the AI trend, if you will. So big data is kind of like oil. You take out oil from the ground, it's crude and unrefined. But you've got to convert it to jet fuel, you've got to go through a few processes. And that's kind of, for AI algorithms, data is life. It's the training data that needs to be prepped, cleaned, and made available. Enterprises have a lot of data, and thanks to a lot of big data solutions that have emerged over the last few years and have the ability to collect a lot of this data. So one vertical, for example, that I'm looking at very actively right now is the notion of how do we create automatable scripts for business processes. So there's all these business processes. Think about taking a company public. That's a business process. And a lot of that is based on checklists in some person's back pocket, or going through filling out forms or compliance checks and so forth. And you could break all of that down. Think about hiring as a process. creating a job rec, getting candidates in, setting up interviews, measuring the output, getting an offer out, closing, dealing with the pipeline. So these are big, hairy business processes that take a lot of manual effort today. And I think one of the things that we can start to do is give people not just more enjoyable and meaningful work to do, but take away some of that boring, repetitive work that nobody really likes to do. T&E expenses would be another example. I'm sure everybody can relate to here.
Have you had any exits in the AI space, and if so, what were they?
We have.
Go ahead.
We had a company called Turo, which I think was bought by Apple. And that was, I would say, in the category of really interesting with science and technology, that some of these big players, what Gaurav was saying, really wanted that technology as well as the people. So it was definitely on the early side in terms of exits.
Yeah, I was going to say, there's, again, if you look at the definition of AI being around for a few decades, it's just you're seeing deeper learning now than you used to do. So there's been a history of exits in the AI space, and also some that I was involved with, a company called Saffron that did text mining and NLP that was acquired a few years ago. Obviously, Cloudera went public. That's more of a data infrastructure company as opposed to an AI company. There's a few others, I'm sure.
I just mentioned one. AI has been around for a while. Back when I was at MIT, my AI professor was Ravi, who founded Roomba, the robotic vacuum cleaner way back when. And so a lot of this has been around. The catalysts are finally coming together. Back in 2007, I invested in a company that came out of Harvard University called SET. And SET is a computer vision platform to monetize media on sites like YouTube and Longtail by doing automatic recognition of scenes, faces, objects, brands, and being able to monetize that. And it was way ahead of its time. It was much more computationally intensive and expensive to do that, although the company eventually had a very nice exit to Epsilon.
Anybody else? All right. Thank you guys so much. It's a pleasure.